Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. It is so great to see you all again. I am back in my regular studio, and I have a new guest here today that I have never had before. Welcome, SciNiece.
Hi.
And in addition, I also have some old friends. Hello to Purple.
Earth to
Oh,
purple?
yep.
Sorry,
I
had the mic
think.
muted. Hi.
Okay.
I am noticing that YouTube has a very serious lag tonight.
Okay.
Always
Yeah,
fun.
as YouTube is having some issues. So if we end up going down, we end up going down, but we'll do the best we can. And hello, Will, Godless Sewing.
Hi, how's everyone doing? Hello.
And as always, it is wonderful to have Kitty, the Empress of Hell, Kitty the Atheist.
Love you, Gigi.
Today we are talking about gun control. This is a topic that I enjoy talking about. I am very much in favor of gun control. I'm a little bit odd in that I have never liked guns. I've never wanted anything to do with guns. I've never owned a gun. And my dad had a gun in the house when I was a kid. I saw it in his closet once, but I never saw him take it out, never saw him use it. And I'm married to a man that was career Army. So he definitely he was around tanks all the time. But
Ew, marriage. Just kidding. I'm bitter. Just kidding. I'm bitter. I'm divorced. I divorced a piece of shit. You'll hear a lot of anytime I'm on a stream, I usually have to say something about fuck my ex-husband at least once.
Okay.
Thank God he never owned a gun.
Yeah.
I thought the
but
point
my
of being an
husband-
ex is you don't have to fuck him anymore.
Well, that's not always true, but I think that's a topic for another stream. Granny doesn't know me well enough for me to be derailing the streams willy-nilly yet.
Well, as a staunch lefty, I have quite a few really strange views on guns, I think. First off, as I've said a million times, I live in California. We have extremely hardcore laws here. Like, you can't carry a gun without a license. You get 10 years in prison if you get caught without a gun. Without a license, you have to have a
You get caught without a gun and you go to prison? I thought that was
you have to have a
like
DOJ background check that takes at least 2 to 3 weeks on average, which means they actually have to run your name. And if you have any blips, the gun owner is responsible. So if someone sells someone with a felony a gun, then if that person goes out and commits a crime, the person who sold them the gun is liable.
Mm.
And also, when you purchase a gun or transport a gun, you have to have it in your trunk, locked and utterly completely out of reach. But I know, and having been to every state except for Hawaii, I know it's not like that in other places.
No,
I mean, New Jersey's pretty strict with their gun laws. Not that level, but I mean, I live in Pennsylvania now, but I'm a New Jersey native, so
in order to own something like an AR-15, you would need a heavy guns license, which means you'd actually have to take a class and learn how to operate. You basically have to learn how to operate like the military would.
Will, you have a concealed carry permit, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Okay. But that's because I'm a property owner, and so there's a whole other and it's because I'm in charge of a large property.
Now, if with a concealed carry permit, can you have a gun in your car without, having it locked up like that?
Yes, because your license stipulates that you know what you're doing.
Okay.
It's not a tier system, but it's almost a tier system.
It's the same thing here in Florida. I also have a concealed weapons permit, and in the state of Florida, you have to go through a safety course. You have to take there's a little written portion of it that you have to fill out, and then you have to do a practical exam. It's really simple. It's can you load, discharge 5 shots, and then unload the weapon. It's basically just showing the basics of the weapon and firing it off, which I think is great. I think that everybody should have to go through that, not just if you want a concealed weapons permit, but there's other things too that the concealed weapons permit grants. Like in the state of Florida, if you wanted to buy a rifle or a shotgun, you could go down to a gun store or a Walmart and walk out with one that day. There's no waiting period for those. However, for a handgun, you have a set waiting period. I believe it's 3 days, and that's basically meant to be time for like the background check to go through and make sure that you're legally allowed to purchase that gun. If you have your concealed weapons permit, that is waived because you've already gone through the background check process. You've already done the licensing fee and basically shown that you're an upstanding citizen, which you need to be in order to get the permit in the first place. So I could walk into the Florida Gun Exchange and pick out a new pistol and walk out with it that day because of my concealed weapons permit. And I have to have the permit on me, same like Will was saying. If I get caught with my firearm and I don't have my permit on me and I have it concealed, it's not going to be pleasant. Like, so my way around that to make sure that I never slip up is the way I carry my gun is with a belly band holster. It's basically like a neoprene thing that it goes around my torso. So I'll wear like a camisole or something like that and then wrap it around my torso. And I actually keep my permit in one of the, because it has areas for extra magazines. If you need them, I don't know why you would, but it's just part of the design. So I keep my permit in the belt that actually holds my firearm. So if I ever am out with it, I know that they are both together and it's not, oh, I forgot my wallet at home. I don't ever want to risk one of those moments because the consequences would not be pleasant for me. But yeah, so that's, at least how it is in Florida. I'm not sure about other states.
One thing I wanna address before we go off too much is how we got here. How in America we have the gun culture because so in the early
an extension of their dicks. It's ridiculous.
well, it's insecurities, but in the early 80s we had mass shootings around the world. We had Hungerford in, I believe it was England, Port Arthur in the 90s. So around this time, every country except for America outlawed guns. So basically you couldn't have an Uzi anymore. You couldn't have an AR-15. Every country except for America. And so what happened is every manufacturer turned its eyes on America. If you look at our popular culture in the 80s, name a movie that didn't have a gun in it, that didn't have somebody walking around with a real replica of something that they were selling. And that's how
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
Well, basically.
No, because Mike TV had his little toy guns.
Oh, yeah. Our gun
Mike
culture.
TV had his toy gun.
The culture we have now is literally from the 80s because we were told, hey, you need a gun. Because in America, we're consumers. And because we didn't have laws, we were quite literally the last ones left. And here we are. Here, 600, hold on, let me look at my notes. 611 mass shootings since January. That's 5 or more people.
Wait, so it's January of this year.
Yes.
Am I interpreting correctly? Okay, then. But we don't have a problem, right?
Sorry, go ahead.
My thing on gun control is, we need common sense restrictions. Mm-hmm. Nobody's talking about the right to drive if you have to have a license and you have to have insurance and whatnot. Certain safeguards to make sure you are competent to own and operate a vehicle. Same thing with guns. And what I love to do is when people start whining and bitching and moaning about background checks, I'll just be like, okay, so why would you fail one? Because that's the question now, isn't it?
I will play devil's advocate here because I do think that we need stronger gun control measures, even though I am a gun owner, concealed weapons permit haver. But it's apples to oranges comparing cars to guns insofar as you don't have a constitutionally protected right to a car. But unfortunately, the way it's worded and the way it's been interpreted by the Supreme Court, you do have a constitutionally protected right to a firearm with the Second Amendment.
a factor to consider there is that at the time the Constitution was written, guns existed, but cars did not.
True.
Okay, so
Yeah,
let's
but guns
get
were
into
not
that.
what they are today, and I think that's the
Ex-
point Will was just
That's
about to
also
make.
that's another issue. It's a long-standing problem that we've had for years now. Technology and the law do not catch up with each other very well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so also, I'm stealing the second part from Purple because she always says this, but this law was made for people that were farmers. And
Mhm.
you know, they'd have their flintlock, they'd have their 1873 Enfield, and then they go farm half the year. And if they were needed, they would go fight. But these were not what we considered military. They were nowhere near what we have today.
Well,
Well,
it's because
No,
to
Sorry,
kind
go
of
ahead.
respond on that and what Taram was saying there, that the idea of everyone having a right to bear arms was supposed to be because there was no federal military, that each state was supposed to have their own military,
Mhm.
so that if the federal government got to be too totalitarian, that the states could fight against the federal government. This was not meant for individual citizens. It was meant for each state to have a military.
Yeah. One of the things that really concerns me about all the talk about gun control is mental health. So often when we hear of mass shootings, we hear that the person that was responsible was having a mental health issue. And if mental health is, a clear mental health record is going to be a requirement for having a gun permit, then first of all, we're going to have to waive HIPAA rights in order to get a gun permit. And I'm also just really concerned about publicizing people's mental health records and what
True.
that's going to do to being able to get help when you need help.
I mean,
Yeah,
our
it's
mental health
definitely a bit of
system.
a minefield. It's really it's a fine line to walk. Where do people have the right to privacy in their medical records, because mental health is a medical issue like anything else, and where does public safety come into play if somebody's identified by a professional as being at risk for committing a crime such as a mass shooting? Doesn't the there's a you ever hear the concept of duty to warn in the mental health field?
Absolutely.
So where does duty to warn start to come into play here?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes down to it, I mean, even like HIPAA, it does protect a person's rights. Like if you go in for an STI screening and it turns out that you're HIV positive, they'll tell you should get in contact with people you've been in sexual relations with, but they can't go out and do it. They can't go say, hey, by the way, even if they know you're sleeping around, they can't tell those people that you're positive because, it would be breaking HIPAA, it'd be breaking the law. Even,
It's the law here.
It's dire consequences, if you don't inform, but there are lots of areas where we get stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I think one thing that we can do, like just sidestepping that issue entirely for a moment, we need to address not only healthcare, but especially mental health care in this country. Right now, having mental health issues is incredibly stigmatized, and our mental health care system is absolutely atrocious. It is in shambles. If we had better service for people, if people didn't have to worry about paying for it because their medical was covered like every other first world country in the world covers, and if, we didn't stigmatize it, then people who are having mental health issues can go seek that help and not feel stigmatized. And that would inadvertently lead to less of these gun incidents, because there are guns in other countries in the world, and there are mental health problems in every country in the world. But there's just this really toxic mix in the United States because we have both of those things, plus a really shit healthcare system, and everybody has to fend for themselves. It's dog eat dog. If you can't afford it, you can't get treated.
And also, our media has basically turned into Twitter. You pick a side, you pick a channel, and then you have this side spouting off rhetoric for this side to this side. Imagine somebody who's not mentally well says, "Oh, my country's at risk. These people
like
are
the
hurting
people
my
who follow
country."
QAnon.
Knowing, but that's where it came from. Knowing that we're all from the same place, as far as Americans go, because that's really what we're talking about. And also there is the lies we tell ourselves, and there is a false idea of what it is to be an American. There's
Hello, Jenny.
Hi.
Hey, Jenny.
Jenny.
There's this false idea
Hey,
that
Jenny.
because the amendment covers you, that you can have a Chinook helicopter in your driveway and do whatever you want. And the well-regulated militia is our National Guard. I honestly, I think it comes down to education and people thinking they have way more rights than what they really do. You really don't have the right to kill someone. You don't.
No. Okay, so a couple of things. One, going with what you were saying and what Tyron was saying, a lot of the ammosexuals, which are
love
like
that thing.
the crazy right wing, pry it from my cold dead hands. I need it to protect me from the tyranny of
God, I
government
love that
overreach.
word.
Like, when it comes down to it, like, what is, even though you have an arsenal, like enough to fucking support the military of a small country for 2 years, like, you got that. What are you gonna do against the government that's got drones? They can just drop a bomb on your house. Like, if the government truly was going to go all tyranny and rawr, like, your guns aren't going to protect you. Now, I have the gun to protect myself, from other people that would seek to do me harm. I don't think that I stand any chance in hell with my one little gun that I own of standing up to the government, and I wouldn't want to. Like,
Exactly. You could get a drone strike
stupid.
on you.
It's suicide.
Kitty, you realize that there's homosexuals who own dozens and dozens of high power rifles with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of rounds of ammunition.
Yes.
Okay. There's not that, well, there's probably a lot of them. They're not going to stop the military, but they're sure going to make a mess for quite a while before they are defeated.
We are the only country in the world where every other citizen is armed. There are more guns than people.
Yes, I find that absolutely flabbergasting.
We are quite literally, and I want you to think about, like, I was thinking about this morning. Our the way we treat guns is how third world countries treat guns. I've been places where I was at a bar in Mexico where this guy asked me, "Hey, do you know how to calibrate a gun?" He's like, "Yeah." We go outside and we're letting off shots in the middle of an alley in Mexico. You don't want that. That's basically what we have here in America, regardless of people think of it or not, And one thing that I think that needs to be addressed, not only do we sell guns to ourselves, we sell guns to every country that can afford to buy them.
Mm-hmm.
And then right now, our weapons are being used in a war against people who just want to live in a certain place. It's our weapons. When you see the Iron Dome, we built that. When you see someone of a certain army walking around with firearms, those weapons are in English. They're in American English. They were made here, So all those people saying, "Oh, for Gaza," like, we have a part of that. Our country supplies the IDF with what they're doing right now.
Like, our country, like, inadvertently supports Islamic terrorists, like the fucking extremist Wahhabist Islam of Saudi Arabia. They're one of the people that we support, hands down. We're helping them commit a genocide in Yemen right now. We're providing aid to a genocide.
We're also helping
we don't
Israel
really have
commit
a
a
high horse
genocide
to
against
be
the
on.
Palestinians, but I don't think we're ready for that conversation.
Well, I'm trying not to get into it too much because we could pick a continent. Do you know what we did to Gaddafi? We gave Gaddafi the power and then took it from them because of weapons.
Yeah,
we
Cat
did that.
Williams
We
actually
created
covered that quite
Gaddafi.
well.
In Afghanistan, most of the tribal warlords we were fighting had American rifles because we gave them to them when the Russians were occupying the country.
Charlie Wilson's war is real, not just a
The
Tom Hanks
Americans
movie.
give it, and then the Americans go and try to take it away.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the problems that, like, in America, we export our problems. We send our problems to other countries, and then we say, "Oh, we should have comprehensive gun laws." Like, we're doing it to ourselves and everybody else,
Mhm.
That's my lefty coming screaming out.
That's racist, Will.
On a lighter note, I want to say something really quick. There is a direct correlation between a man owning a bunch of guns and being rubbish in bed. I've done research. It's real. If you own a bunch of guns, you're compensating for something.
Didn't I say earlier on that guns are like the extension of the penis? Well,
when I see pictures of somebody, when like there's quite a few pictures of people, they put all their guns on their patio. To me, that's fear. You're showing me how scared you are. You're outwardly showing your fear. You know, I don't understand people that need to own. If you have one high-powered rifle, you have them all. Sorry, sorry to spoil it.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
I have been told that I should probably never own a gun.
Well, it's more if it's one of those things too. If you own a gun, actually, Kitty is better at this statistic than I am.
Oh, I forget the exact number, but if you own a gun, your chances of dying in gun violence go up by a significant amount.
Mm-hmm.
People who own guns are most likely to get shot with their own guns. I've heard that. But
either by themselves or by someone else.
Which is exactly why I have never owned a gun.
Even during a break-in, you are more likely to shoot a family member than an intruder.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is a name that too many people might not know, but Marvin Gaye was shot by his father.
Oh, I heard about that. I knew that.
His father thought he was
because
breaking in the house.
That,
He was coming in the house to say hello to his father, and his father murdered him. You know, so that is real. It's been happening.
One thing that I wonder,
why I'm glad my mother doesn't own a gun. Sometimes I barge in her house unannounced and uninvited, and if she owned a gun, I'd be dead by now.
one thing I wonder is I have talked to some people who sound like very responsible gun owners that, they say they keep their guns locked, but they also say that in case of a break-in, they can have their gun out in 10 seconds flat. And I'm thinking, if you can have your gun out in 10 seconds flat, so can your kid.
So I'm so glad you brought that up,
Well, that could be hyperbole, or they could be lying about how safely the guns are.
Right.
Well, SciNiece, I did control quality. So I have this. This is a real gun lock. I own many of these. This is the one. I own so many that I still have one in the package.
Looks like a really weird sex toy.
And so one of the reasons that these are good for rifles, they're good for handguns. These
they're
are
good for domination.
They're sold everywhere. They're the standard size. You can't get them much bigger. They do not fit AR-15s. They do not fit Bushmasters. They do not fit any of the modern guns that we have nowadays. And my whole rant is, if we're going to have safety measures, if we're going to have things like this, then we need locks and safes that aren't easy to get into. And another reason why I showed this one, I asked my son to break a lock of another one. He walked over to my bolt cutters, grabbed them, and cut that lock within less than, 40 seconds, however long it took him to find the bolt cutters.
Mm-hmm.
So quite literally, like, it takes less than 10 seconds to get, if you know what you're doing,
Okay, but Will, here, I have two questions for you. One is, if you wanted to access one of your guns that had one of those locks on it, how long would it take you to get the lock off?
About 1 minute and 45 seconds, 3 minutes, around there. It depends on heart rate. It depends on how far the person is, where my key is, which firearm I'm using at the time. Because a handgun is different than a rifle, than a shotgun. It's always situational. But no, I need, like anyone else, I need fair warning. But here in California, if you shoot someone, they can sue you. So the rule is, if someone breaks in your house, you have to put them down, because we have weird laws here.
New Jersey has some ridiculous duty to retreat statutes where basically defending yourself at all, and you're automatically in some shit, whether with or without a gun.
John Oliver did a good segment just the other day on stand your ground laws, and pointed out the states that have stand your ground laws. And it was interesting when he showed a segment where a reporter asked three people on the street, how they felt about introducing a stand your ground law in your state. And two of the people, white men, were all for it. Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. But then the third person they asked was a black man who said, no, that sounds terrible. It means all I have to do is say I'm afraid. Now I've got the right to shoot you.
And I don't think people understand that. I actually, that happened to me. And I took a gun out of a very scared security guard's hand because he didn't believe that I was on. Basically, I was on a job, and he just had a feather up his butt that day and felt like messing with me. And I scared him, and he pulled his firearm out.
It was a feather.
I took it out of his hand and took it apart. People like that should not own firearms. But the problem is, if we lived anywhere else, he could have said, "Oh, this person scared me," and he could have killed me instantly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a good comparison. This is going to sound really off the wall, but who's a South Park fan here? Anyone
I used to watch it.
Anyone
It's a bit
remember
crass.
Uncle Jimbo?
South Park's a bit transphobic nowadays, so I don't watch it as
Oh,
much.
absolutely. I don't watch them anymore. They've jumped the shark. They're terrible. But early on in the series, like when I was nowhere near old enough to be watching it, there was an episode where the boys go hunting with Stan's Uncle Jimbo. And stand your ground laws are basically like Uncle Jimbo's explanation of, well, if you want to shoot something, you have to yell, it's coming right for us.
John Oliver had did an episode on Sunday night actually talking about stand your ground laws and castle doctrine.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. Jenni, we haven't heard much from you yet tonight. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out where the conversation started and where it's going.
It's kind of going all over the place. We're not doing a good job of staying on any one particular area of gun control. We've talked a little bit about, safety for family members. We've talked a little bit about the number of mass shootings. So we're kind of been all over the place.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Well, I was going off about gun culture, but
Well, I mean,
what bothers me a lot about gun culture is it comes up with these little these little sayings that they can put on bumper stickers to prove their point, to bolster their position. Pride this, you can have it when you can pride under my cold dead hands, and all this macho shit. And one of late that drives me absolutely nuts is the one. The best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Yeah, that one bugs me.
And if you look at some recent shootings and the profiles of the people who did the shooting, take the nut in Las Vegas who got up in the hotel and took out how many dozens of people he did, and you look back on his record and everybody said, "Well, he was such a nice guy."
mm-hmm.
Up until that moment that he pulled that first trigger, he was a good guy with the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The good guy with the gun is a fallacy that any one of us, if we have a gun in our hand, are at risk of using it and pulling the trigger and killing someone, whether or not we in our heart want to do it.
But they're appealing to the fragile.
I'm not saying that to encourage people to say, well, just know yourself better and make a clear decision and things like that. No, most people do not have the situational awareness or the I'm just going to be real rude about it. The mental ability to own a gun, that they just shouldn't be anywhere near. It's like the same. It's like there's a whole bunch of people out there who should not drive a car over 50 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
if you hesitate, you'll die.
A car or a gun, no matter what.
No, if you
exactly.
pull out a gun and you hesitate, you're dead.
Exactly.
And if you have a law that says everybody gets to have this, well, then you'll end up with these. Oh God, with people who, and I hate to put down my sisters, but a lot of women with pink handguns and things like that because their hubby said, well, you need to have this to protect yourself, and they're deluded into this thing that everywhere they turn there's going to be a bad guy trying to rape them, which of course does happen, but that doesn't mean everybody's got to be armed to the teeth about it. And how often does it happen in your damn suburb?
So I agree and
Okay,
disagree.
wait a minute. Will, I want to take a chance to say hello to Cynthia.
Hi.
Hello, Cynthia.
Hi,
Hi,
everybody.
person I don't know.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm gonna. The reason I brought that up is because, and I'm glad Cynthia's here because I'm about to make a statement. one of the things that were ingrained in me as a child is one of the reasons I need to own a gun is because my father's grandmother was a born slave. And as an American and as a man from Georgia, he always told me, no, you have to protect yourself and your family, regardless of what's going on, because one day society could go down. And we live in America where they haven't been the most reliant to people of color. So I'm pro-gun because I think people of color should be able to defend themselves. I think all Americans should be able to defend themselves. On which level, the mental ability, that's a whole other subject. But there's precedent and reason why I am a card-carrying gun owner. Big reason why. Big reason. And so, you couldn't do to you couldn't even try to do to me what happened to my ancestors because I know better and I'm armed, just like those hillbillies who are claiming the same thing.
Will you agree that there's very likely people exactly like you in that profile that you described who are not capable of owning a gun?
Yes.
Okay.
But so is Kyle Rittenhouse. So was the list goes on, and that child was able to go and grab an AR-15 and hurt somebody.
And his mom drove him over state lines. That was the Kyle Rittenhouse. That's what pisses me off the most. The mother failed to be the parent and took the child over the. Really?
Yeah.
But I have two sisters. One of them, I believe is perfectly competent to own a firearm. The other one, I don't. And it's nothing against them. It's just one, when shit gets real, she will take care of what needs to get done, and she won't back down, if something important is at stake. The other one is like a little chihuahua. She's all talk, and the minute that it got to a point where she would be forced to use the gun to defend herself, it would end up getting turned around on her, and it would not end well.
Oh, Harmonica Man wants a sword and a silly French accent. Well, maybe he should take that up with Stool.
How about you? Oh, okay.
So,
Well,
Cynthia.
I came in on something really robust. Catch me up.
Well, we've kind of been all over the map. We've talked a little bit about the Second Amendment and what it intended and didn't intend to do. We talked a little bit about how the number of guns in this country is absolutely horrendous. We talked about how guns are more likely to harm family members than to harm, an intruder. We talked about how much power the NRA has.
611 mass shootings since January of this year.
Yeah.
That's 5 or more people that are reported.
Yeah.
That are reported. The fact that we even have to specify that.
Oh, where I live, there's all kinds of stuff that doesn't make the paper.
Why am I not shocked?
Yeah, mass shootings mean something where at least 10 people got shot. So that's not covering how many incidents we had talked about that a gun goes off in somebody's home and it's just one person that got shot. I'm sure that there are at least several thousand of those cases since the beginning of the year as well.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I think also like I said earlier, we're under the illusion that we have gun control in this country. Gun control would mean that we actually have control of the situation. We're just doing stopgap measures to stop there when there's a problem. There's no preemptive strike, Like I said,
even the stopgap measures, half the time they fail.
But
because NRA owns half of Congress.
Exactly. Like I said, 30 years ago, every country except for America outlawed having assault rifles. Our culture geared towards, like I said earlier, look at the 80s culture. It was nothing but giant guns. Look at us now.
Back in the 80s, assault weapons were banned. like, you know, that you weren't allowed to have them. And then what was it, like the early aughts that they lifted the assault weapons ban?
But we were the
Well,
only
I
country in the
know
world.
that in the 70s, the Black Panthers used to go out in the streets in California with assault weapons, and they wanted to arrest them, but they couldn't because there was no law against it.
That
And
law is
that's
still
when
on the
some of the
book.
laws started against them. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
law is still to this. That law is actually the reason why no one can own an assault rifle in the state of California.
Hmm.
They just grandfathered it in and changed the names, but it's the same law.
Yeah.
Well, imagine that. You know,
Well, only,
I honestly think the reason these mass shootings are not prompting a serious change in legislation is that a significant majority, if not almost all of them, have been perpetrated by white men. I guarantee the first time a person of color perpetrates a shooting to the same degree as some of the ones we've seen, like Columbine, the movie theater in Colorado, anything like that. The first time a person of color is behind something like that, we'll have the kind of gun control laws we've needed all along, and possibly even stricter ones the next day. So
Well-
yet again, it's all rooted in racism, and I can't stand that.
Well,
Well,
it's not just
let me just jump in here real quick.
Sure.
Well, for one, as far as like that particular point, now, do you all remember what happened in Virginia Tech?
Yes,
Hmm.
I
Yeah, yeah, and actually the mass shooter was Asian,
do. Mm-hmm.
but
That's true, but I think at that time, you know, it wasn't considered socially acceptable to.
well, but also to your point, and I don't know what that background noise is, but to your point, the same argument that has been used for other mass shootings was, oh, they have a mental issue.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So yeah, so like for the Virginia Tech mass shooter, he had a mental issue. Dylan Roof specifically had a mental issue of I just hate black people. And I guess that's a diagnosable. Check the DSM people.
Mhm.
See if it's in there.
That's not a mental issue. That's just
No.
he was.
I'm
Dylan Roof was a little
totally-
asshole.
No,
I'm being sarcastic.
Okay.
Okay,
Good. I just wanted to make sure. He was a little shit.
Yeah, no, I'm being
Let him cry.
I'm being hella sarcastic. But you know, to this whole talk about gun control and guns. First off, America in itself is, if I were to attribute anything that has this like high phallic mysticism of awe and glory, it would be guns. Specifically here. And it has been for a very long time. I mean, like, if anybody can go there with me, Granny, Will, y'all remember back in the day the westerns that was on television,
Hmm.
and they were extremely popular, and everybody walked around with a holster, you know, Bonanza, Ponderosa, hell, even Little House on the Prairie, you know, Paul had a
Wild
shotgun.
West.
You know,
Even
yeah.
Daniel Boone had his 1873 Enfield at all times.
At all times.
the heyday
then-
for the westerns on TV was like 1956 to about 65, 66.
Yeah, I mean,
Had
so
to have
like,
been in the 60s because my sperm donor, may he die already, actually used to have old Western movies on the TV sometimes and would tell me about watching them as a kid.
yeah.
You know, when I paid
And
attention when he
I
spoke.
used to, and then even though like I ain't even gonna give away my age, but I did watch those shows in
You watched them in
reruns.
reruns.
In
Do you
reruns,
remember-
yeah, I watched them
No.
in reruns,
Reruns.
and with you know family members, and
Granny
and
Granny and I saw him first run.
oh,
Yeah.
okay,
It's okay.
fair,
I'll quote
fair.
Walter Brennan.
And no,
It's
and
okay.
that's, but you know, but regardless, like, you know, guns and like, you know, this, like, it's you're not a man for real unless you got like a big ass shotgun by you, and you know, so you can, you know, defend your land and your property and your woman for America. has always been very much so part of the American fabric and narrative.
Yeah.
It's always been romanticized. I mean, even when we think about the homesteaders from back in the day, people would come out with their wagons and even
Okay.
Meemaw would be walking around, with the gun. And I mean, even I can, and going back to even to your point earlier, Will, when you were talking about, being like a descendant of slavery and them being gadded up, basically,
Yeah.
to control, to basically protect themselves against like clanners and knights of the round table, no pun intended for, the Holy Grail. I love that movie, by the way. But regardless, they still would even show like narratives about Harriet Tubman having her big old shotgun and saying, I never lost a railroad passenger and I never will. And most likely because she threatened him. She said, yeah, come over here and sit up here and say anything about this Underground Railroad, it's your ass. I'm paraphrasing, but that was a thing. So
Okay, then.
I mean,
Well, I don't think I learned today.
I mean, but like, so fast forward, it's, to me, it's not a it's not like a glaring reach or a stretch in why we are still so much so committed to our guns, but to your point, I think is it SciNiece? SciNiece? Okay. Ooh, you sound like
you may have known my late uncle, Strike.
Strike.
Yeah, may he rest in peace. Great man.
Strike, yes, rest in peace. But no, I don't. But still,
you should check him out. Not his usurper, himself.
Okay, I will. Send me a link. But yeah. What was I completely got off, y'all. I got older and I don't remember things. But regardless, and I didn't hear. Anyway, so to my point as far as like, us being so committed to our guns, as far as like Americans are concerned, it's not a stretch because this is something that has been ingrained in our culture forever, right? Since America was America.
I take exception to that. I wish I had something current so I could read numbers and everything on it. But what you're saying is true, but it's not reality. Okay.
Well,
how's that?
So perception is always going to be reality. Okay?
Well, exactly. Why do we have that perception? Because of media.
Sure. I mean, but okay. Everything that I also mentioned was part of the media fabric. Like these television shows, these photographs of like, these considered these heroes, these people like, who having their guns. I mean, like that's definitely it was propagandized.
Or as someone who grew up in a military family, everybody glorifies war until you have to live with someone who's been through a war. My pops, up until the 90s, was a nightmare because he'd have flashbacks. He'd wake up screaming. He was the strongest human being I ever known, and war messed him up badly. My brother was the real life Urkel. He came back from his 20-year stint in the Air Force. He's been to Iraq. Basically, he's been with his wife for 20 years. They did the math. They were only together for 5 years of their relationship because he was in Iraq every 6 months, basically. War destroys people. He is a broken person. He is not the same person in any way, shape, or form. No, we glorify. I want to say one more point, and then I'll shut up. Wild Bill Hickok created what we consider the Wild Wild West cowboy. So if you want to take it back to media, even back then, most cowboys were Black and Mexicans. Homesteaders were the people having the land. The people that were actually real cowboys were wanted nothing to do. They were moved to the West. That's why they made laws against people of color being in the West in the first place.
Well, so we couldn't really take advantage of the Homestead Act.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And so my whole point is cowboy was considered an undesirable job. And it wasn't until Wild Bill and Annie Oakley came around was it romanticized.
Right.
What we think of it.
But that's what I was even talking about previously. It's like, when we even though like if we're talking about war, or even when we're
Mhm.
talking about those particular time periods and who was considered a cowboy, who was considered this, who was considered that, it was not a glorious living condition, right?
Exactly.
Oftentimes, like, the gun was like to protect your family. It was so that you can shoot, so that you can eat. And it was, in order for you to conquer the land, in order for you to get it, which really was yours in the first place,
Exactly, and
to be
that's
honest with you.
and
But,
Mhm.
but what my point was previously about, like, culture, specifically like American culture, because to your point, Jenny, like, these are ideas that have been romanticized and actually, like, put in propagandize, and to the point where, like, even folk feel that, it is my right, not even as opposed to even like the Second Amendment. I mean, like, because oftentimes this is something that's constantly in my eye gate, it's in my ear gate, it has been something that has been perpetuated from me from generation to generation to generation, that, have gun will travel is now, the idea of the land. So it's not, so to me, what I was just saying previously is that it's not a stretch that, guns have been so much part of, what your idea is when it comes to America. Now, to the point of,
Okay,
now
wait a minute,
who,
Cynthia, before
yeah,
you go on to another point, I think
yeah,
Jenny had a point she wanted to make.
okay, sure, go ahead.
well. I don't want to step on her because we're both traveling on the same road here. Let's let her make her point, and I'll fill in if I
Okay,
think.
Okay.
okay.
Well, no, but I was just going to say, yeah, culture, guns, and we're here. So it's not a stretch, right? But now now we're having this whole conversation about, well, who should have a gun and who shouldn't? Who should be able to wield who should be able to wield this particular weapon, and who should not? Because let's keep it a buck, that this is a weapon, right? And if it's, and oftentimes used, it is not used in order for you to warn anybody. It's not used for anything but to take a life, period. And I mean, like, and no matter how folk are using it to, like, justify why they have them, it's still a tool to use to take a life. And and so, like, I kind of get a bit frustrated with a lot of these gun arguments on why we should have them, as far as, like, especially when it comes to, like, assault rifles and an assault weapon. There's no reason for any average American to have a military style weapon, and
Mm-hmm.
none whatsoever. And I know that we'll probably get on it later on, especially because I know, Granny, you asked me specifically to come on to kind of talk about even, like, violence in urban areas when it comes to gun use. But yeah, it really just, like, kind of just, like, makes me cringe. And I mean, like, I don't particularly care for guns. I don't, like, oppose a person's right to have one or to even protect themselves. But at the same time, we do create often these overarching arguments that oftentimes are fallacious in nature for why we should even have as many that we do in this country.
So, quick
Or,
Okay,
question.
yeah,
can I
I
dovetail
have
off
a
that then?
yeah,
Wait,
a
we'll
question.
let Jenny go first.
Okay.
yeah.
The the romanticization of guns, as I mentioned earlier, and people have been reinforcing, has come largely from Hollywood, largely from television uh, uh, dramas where Gunsmoke and
Hmm.
Paladin and all these heroes with their guns. The West was nothing like that.
True.
Every family did not own a gun. There were
Right.
not gunslingers going from town to town shooting people up. There were not gunslingers getting hired by every other rancher who was trying to steal Granny's deed to shoot them up. Okay,
Yeah, that
um,
all sounds so unrealistic.
it is
No,
absolutely unrealistic. Okay,
it was very much so
guns were not
inflated.
everywhere. Guns were hard to build, expensive to build, very hard to ship. Okay, and the only people that had guns in those days was pretty much the military. People did have guns for hunting. Yes, absolutely they did. You can tell by the lack of buffalo. But everybody wasn't walking around armed to the teeth. They just weren't. Now, what bothers me is that when we have these idiots of today walking around saying, "Make America great again," well, this is what they mean. Is they want the fantasy that they have about the old West, where everybody is armed to the teeth and can shoot anybody they think they need to. That's what great America is to them. They won't tell you that, but you know damn well that's what they're interested in.
Can I just say real quick? I get so cringy when I hear MAGA, "Make America Great Again," and
I get homicidally angry. I think that's a more appropriate response.
Right. I mean, it's cringe. Well, I don't know that, but I mean, it's only cringy to me because like it forces to raise this question: when was America considered great?
Never. Well, it depends on what side you're standing on. It was never.
Right. Yeah. What side are you standing on? And and who is the one that has to absorb America's greatness again from back in the day?
So I have a question for the panel, and I'm glad I wrote it down. So is the American view on guns religious?
I think that guns have been deified in a way by those people. And to just real quick, on Cynthia's point, like, unless you were a wealthy white man, America's not really been great for you. If you're a person of color, if you are a woman, it's not really been great. Like, now is the best time. And as much as there are issues and problems, now is the best time for everyone who's not a wealthy white male. I love the Time Lord shirt, the TARDIS shirt. Yeah, because I mean, even for white women, like going back a couple of decades, we weren't allowed to have credit cards in our own names. They had to be in our husband's names. And so like financial decisions had to be run through the husband. Go back further, you're not even allowed to work. You're expected to sit at home and shit out kids and tend to the home. You didn't even have the right to vote,
Or back in the day, even if you did work, you worked for shitty ass labor wages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically.
And didn't your money all belong to your husband anyway?
Yes,
it did. And it's going way further back. If you did actually make a little something of yourself, then as a woman, going to Salem, like a lot of that was basically jealousy, or they wanted something like that. One woman was a widow, I believe, and she'd inherited some land and property, and she's minding her own business, but somebody else wanted that, so they accused her of witchcraft so that they could take it. And yeah, literally, it has not been a good time in this country. America's never been great for anyone that's not a wealthy white, male, essentially. White Anglo-Saxon Protestant
male. Let's clarify. A wealthy white cis male.
Let's take it to right now.
Honestly, going back, like nobody even talked about that genders at all. Like, I mean, I'm just trying to simplify it as much as possible because we didn't really. I mean, the term cisgender didn't even exist back then.
No, that's true.
That's why I'm
saying
if
you didn't fit outside the cookie cutter model, it's a very specific cookie cutter model of who America had ever been really great for until recent times.
Yes. So America's great now, like as in comparison anyway, to how it was for everybody that didn't fit that mold.
Okay, then let's address the problem. The problem is that people like me are able to own a business, climb that socioeconomic ladder. Disenfranchised people look at people like me and they're like, "Oh, my country's disappearing." But the truth is, I was born here too. We have less reasons to separate ourselves. So what's happening is we are more equal. But now the people who thought that they were in charge realizing that they're not. So that's why you get people running in crowds with AR-15s. That's why you get.
Still in charge. They're still in charge. But the thing about it is that, and I was kind of having like a slight. It wasn't an argument. It was just a tinge of a disagreement with a friend of mine when we were talking about, and we were talking specifically about women behavior, specifically Black women behavior, emulating, what they see on television, on BET, and on reality TV shows and
Oof.
Instagram. And
Oh, man.
yeah, it was a decent exchange. And one of the things that I mentioned to him specifically is that you're going to see things a bit differently because this is the group that you're always around. So
Yeah.
you're going to have a perception that's going to be apropos to what is in front of you, not necessarily just saying that, hey, guess what? We as a society are changing.
Mhm.
Back in the day, I know no one remembers this, but hey, I used to watch Downton Abbey, still doing reruns. Women in
Never
the
saw
19
that.
Oh my goodness, girl. You gotta watch it.
Oh,
No.
you need to get up to speed. See, you don't know me from Adam, so you don't know this, but it's a
I
running
know.
joke, and pretty much anyone who's been in any streams with me,
Okay.
I was raised under a rock. There's a lot I haven't seen.
Oh no. Okay. I
The-
will.
You're talking
I'll
to
give
someone
you
who
my.
never saw Scarface and never saw The Godfather. So does it really shock you I've never
Wow.
seen
Well,
Downton Abbey?
excuse me, excuse
I
me. Downton Abbey is great, but it's so ancient. You should be watching A Place for Home. It's an Australian drama. It's much better.
well,
I've been told I should watch The Handmaid's Tale.
Definitely.
I haven't even watched that. But my point was about that time period. Remember, there was a time where women wore corsets, right? They used to pull them so damn tight you couldn't breathe. You about halfway about to fall the fuck out, and then all of a sudden all of a sudden, like, what happened to her? She died because she couldn't breathe no more.
Oh, pussy.
Hey, floof.
It's
But
so
then after a while, like I would even say, like, okay, so like in the 1900s, women were still wearing corsets. By the time the 1920s came around, they ditched that shit. You know what I'm saying? So like
The-
all the time,
the-
All right, Jenny's got her stuffy on here.
But
I
now,
got it.
but now corsets have come back, and they're a very popular item today.
I have waist trainers. I'm still trying to get that, Uhura mirror universe body. I'm working on it, but
Oh,
I ain't
you're
got
too old
there
for
yet.
that, girl.
Okay. So time out. Okay. No, as somebody that is very interested in sewing and historical dress, historical clothing, corsets, like, they weren't actually laced super tight back then. And every like peasant woman wore it because they didn't have bras. They needed something to support them.
Right.
Corset companies were actually okay. So basically, you had three different things that did clothing back then. You had the tailors, which were a male-dominated profession, and they did, the patterns, like flat patterns to make suits and so for men, similar to what they do today. You had the mantua makers, which were the dressmakers. They would create things by draping, and that was a female-dominated profession. And then you had the millineries, and the milliners were originally female-dominated, and they were your hats, gloves, other accessories. Then men realized, hey, these bitches be making bank, so we're going to take that over. And corsets were actually demonized because it was a way to cut down women. It was a way to essentially devastate a entire industry that was made, like the corsets were made by women, designed by women, sold by women. Like, men took it over, took over other aspects of the dress wear, and it was literally all propaganda. Like, I definitely recommend like looking into this. There's quite a few resources. I'll see if I can pull them up where that actually goes through like the timeline on it.
I'd like to get back to the point because there is so much on the issue of gun control to talk
Yes,
about.
sorry.
Yeah.
Before we get back to the point, I'm actually gonna bail out. I'm kind of starting to hit my limit here. I have to go lie down. I'm kind of feeling a little dizzy. So
Okay. Well, thank you.
I
for coming.
appreciate you
Thanks
having
by
me.
meeting you.
I appreciate you
Bye-bye.
having me, Granny. I will definitely try to make it into streams in the future.
Okay.
I'll see everybody later and watch on the sofa on Thursdays. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well,
Okay. going back to gun control, there's an area that I wanted to discuss, and it came up in the side chat as well, and it's something that I really definitely wanted to get to, and that is the whole thing about the thoughts and prayers. And the White House has so often given us their thoughts
Oh my
and prayers to the
And
point where I even saw an article in one of the mainstream papers. I can't remember if it was the New York Times or the Washington Post, saying that even the White House has recognized that we are past the point of thoughts and prayers.
Because
Yeah.
it's bullshit and it's sediment and it's unnecessary, really.
It's the same thing that you say to a ugly baby when you call it precious. Like I mean, like if somebody had an ugly baby in front of you and you can't call it the baby ugly, so you go, "Oh, aren't they precious?" It's the same sensibility that you would put every time that we have a mass shooting, and then next thing, we are so another tragedy has happened today, and as a nation, we mourn and we offer our thoughts and prayers to the victims of this national tragedy instead of actually putting together some policy and enforcing it. And a lot of times, and some of the policies that have been floated around, like, universal background checks that actually, are the same from state to state when it comes to buying a gun, and some other things that have been floating around are just like common sense. And I get so fucking tired of, especially when I hear from conservatives, even though liberals ain't all that great either, but I get so fucking tired every time that we are actually having conversations about, can we come up with some policy to actually protect people that they're coming for your guns. I say, no, motherfucker, ain't nobody coming for your goddamn gun. What we're coming for is people who don't need to have them not have the damn gun. Okay? I mean, shit.
But they said that about Obama. They've been saying that. They said that during the entire Obama.
Yeah, I'm
They say
still
that
waiting for
every
Obama to
Democrat
take
for the
my
last
gun.
50 years.
So in my computer,
He's been in
when
the
I'm-
office how long?
every time I make a video, I have thousands of pictures in my computer. I have memes from 9 years ago. It was a skeleton waiting for Obama to take my guns. These are just old arguments. It's just another wedge issue that
That's
people are
true.
What we need to
exactly.
do, what we need to do is it's not a question of whether or not we get laws that deal with things like background checks and gun shows and ghost guns and things like that. Yes, we need those things. The politicians are never going to do it. What we need to develop instead is we need to develop a national mindset. We already have better than 75-80% of the population wants gun control. Okay, and that's bipartisan across the board.
Yeah.
The vast majority of the citizens want gun control. Now, what we need to do with that is we need to capture that and start a movement where people are saying, we want this. They won't give us this. We need to take them away from this job.
Well, to your
And
point,
because everybody stands and says, oh, all these politicians are horrible except mine. Mine's great.
I have something to say after
and-
Cynthia. After Cynthia makes a point, I have something to say.
well, I mean, to what your point, Jenny, Dr. King, I believe, said it best, is that you can't legislate morality, but you can regulate behavior. And the thing about it is that often I don't necessarily think that the citizen populate who actually has voting power really realize that they have voting power. So it's like people don't necessarily like to talk or even get into the weeds of politics because it is weedy. But the thing about it is that movements happen in order to change laws. And if we do have a solid majority of people who want common sense gun laws in order for us to get, because I personally get fucking tired of a politician coming on the goddamn TV talking about, or even other media personalities talking about a thought and a motherfucking prayer. Personally, I think that you can take those thoughts and prayers and shove it up your goddamn ass. Regardless of that, let me finish real quick, Will.
Okay.
I really did have a point, but I'm just saying. So the thing about it is that, with that, that whole majority feel, they have to also be pushing for certain things and policies to be in place in order for us not to constantly have this same hamster wheel going over and over again. Okay, now I'm done.
The only power we have over politicians is removing them from office.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And because
It's
we
called
have
numbers.
and because we have an electorate that will not do that because they think the guy is the greatest thing since sliced bread and toilet paper, they sit in office even though we're telling them do something about this, and they say thoughts and prayers.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to say is until we create the energy and the motivation in the populace, in the electorate, to stand up there and say, no, you are going to be removed from office because you have failed to do what we want.
That's
Okay.
what I meant.
Until we
I
do
totally
that,
agree
until we
with
do
that.
that,
I totally
it's
agree with
nothing's
that.
ever going to change.
Oh,
I wanna make a quick
totally
point.
agree with that. I mean, like, you know, it has to be to the point where, and then I always say this when it comes to any type of agenda. If you are an agenda-driven voter and you are an agenda-driven group, it has to be to the point where you got to come up to your elected official, whoever is representing you, like, this our agenda. You gonna do it or not? And if they be like, well, you know, this the lobbyists, this the NRA, and this, that, this, and the third. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, okay, all right, we got you. We got you. You don't want to do it? We getting rid of your ass. And that has to be something that's constantly repeated. Like, I'm gonna vote against you, and I'm gonna get my people to vote against you
Well,
because you're not doing what we
All
telling
right,
you to
so
do.
I
What
want
I'm-
to
what
make
I- what I'm-
a
what
quick
I'm
point
saying-
before I completely forget my point. To completely derail the subject and change it, on what was it? November 14th,
God damn it, Bill.
2019. I dropped my kid off at school. I see cop cars going everywhere as I'm driving. I get home. As I used to, I'd walk in my garage to turn on the TV. There was a mass shooting at the high school by my son's elementary school. With my garage doors still open, I grabbed my cell phone. I called my ex-wife. I turned around. She was in my driveway because she was listening to talk radio on the way to work. And I'm going to tell you something. That guy was wandering around. They eventually found him and put that kid out of his misery, but we both have conceal and carry permits. We got in the car and we went and sat in front of the kid's school because they weren't going to let us take our kid out of the school. Because you know what? The school was on lockdown. I'll respect it, But I just want to remind people that, we could talk about gun laws all day long. We need to protect our children. We need to take access from guns and kids completely away. I don't live out in the sticks. I live in the suburbs. I live literally where they film movies like no kid needs a gun here. I think we need to remember that. We need to remember that.
To go back to the point,
kids are dying at school though. But literally, kids are dying at school, and we're skirting around the issue. If you want to talk about gun control, let's start there.
Okay, and that's what I'm trying to make the point of. That I said, Cynthia's kind of in the same ballpark with me. Is that when somebody stands up the next shooting, next week when the next shooting happens, or tomorrow.
Because it will.
And everybody stands up and says thoughts and prayers, and says, this is not the time to talk about that.
Oh my God.
We don't stand up. We don't stand up and say gun control, gun control. We stand up and say, remove these politicians who are letting people get killed.
Okay, I'm going to say
we need to bring it home. We need to get the people to understand that the campaign is what is really happening. Not some mythical gun law that they think is going to solve the problem. But no gun law is going to solve the problem.
You were bringing up my biggest beef with this entire forum in general, and I think it's because I'm somebody in the job I do. I'm actually on the street helping people. We can sit here and talk about things all day long, but like Cynthia said, you have to hold a fire under your politicians. You have to hold people accountable, and if you don't constantly hold them accountable, it's just going to be business as usual. And vote, you got to vote their asses out. And
I think that we all actually just agreed.
That's important, on the politician level, but we also have to think about the gun owners. I don't believe that most gun owners are the cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs ammosexuals. but some of them might be, I think it's a spectrum. It's a scale. There's full amosexual, and then there's, like liberal gun owner that they're not like all crazy about the guns, but they have them and they respect them and they're fine with the law, doing more laws. So, but one of the things that I think we need is a national gun registry that is digitized. Right now, it is illegal to digitize the gun records. So if there is a gun crime, they literally have to go through old papers and hope that the records are in the right place through this like graveyard of filing cabinets.
Can I ask one quick question on your subject? If we do have a registry, which I agree with, what's it going to do?
Here's the thing, and I was getting to that. Okay. Having the gun registry, one, would help with actually solving, crimes and tracking down like who the guns belong to if they're used in a crime. But the biggest thing I think is a lot of people are afraid of gun registries, because they're like, oh, that's going to make it easier to come take away my gun. And I think that if we can push I think it's going to be a war of, inching. And I don't think we're going to wake up one day and everything's going to be fixed, because that's not how the world works. But if we can, push here and push there, and if we can get them to see that a gun registry, if you're not doing anything wrong, you've got nothing to worry. Your gun's not going to be taken away.
I have a question concerning the registry. Mm-hmm. So there was a push to actually create a database of sex offenders, specifically, child sex offenders. Now, why was that the case? Why was there a push to create a database and make sex offenders specifically register?
It was because a child was raped by someone who had previously been a sex offender, and the parents in the area all felt that if there had been a registry, they would have known about this, and they would have known who to be vigilant about.
Indeed.
Now, one thing I think we need to, try to promote the political aspect of it is we need to get rid of the dichotomy, because nobody is willing to talk about gun control, because the people on one side think that you're talking about banning guns altogether.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to start with saying, okay, we're not talking about hunting rifles. You can keep those. Now, can we have a rational discussion about automatic weapons?
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly, Purple. Because as I stated earlier, there is no fucking reason why any regular ass motherfucker in America should have a military style weapon. Not at all.
There's no reason anybody needs a gun that can get off more than 5 or 6 shots without reloading.
Right.
If you can't take down an animal with 6 shots, you're just a lousy shot. It's not going to matter.
You need to go back to gun school or wherever the fuck you go in order for you to learn how to shoot that shit right. I mean,
I asked that same question.
I think we need a multi-pronged approach, and we need to tackle it from multiple different areas. We need to change, the conversation, try to change people's thinking on things, which is why I had mentioned the gun registry, because if you can disassociate the idea that the gun registry is so they can take your guns away, then maybe we could get the registry, which would help in tracking down people that commit crimes, where it's oh, hey, we found this gun and it was used to kill this person, but then you find, oh, hey, it's registered to this person, cool, so now we can go and track down that person. So I mean, and then there's the politician angle of voting out people that don't have everyone's best interest at heart. Hell, even the majority of NRA members are fine with universal background checks, according to polling.
But even to your point, Maya, hopefully, with the NRA being bankrupt, fingers crossed, So I wanted to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit when it comes to the registry. And because these thoughts just popped in my head, as they normally do, and I must address them. Now, if we'd say, let's have a registry. So every person who, and I'm assuming, Kitty, you mean that any person that owns a gun or even had like a gun felony would have to register or be part of
No,
this.
okay. So the
Yeah.
registry would basically be, anyone who owns a gun
Mhm.
and, what make, model, serial number of
Okay.
that gun. So it's basically
so you
tying
bought
that
a
weapon to that person.
Okay, got you. So like you bought a gun. Hey, by the way, you got to put your stuff in the D dog doogoo doogoo, and so that way, you and it's digitized. Cool.
Just
So
like you register a car.
right, gotcha. Okay. So this is my fear, only because like my mind goes here, that and I'm thinking specifically of how even a registry like that could be weaponized from people who are from marginalized communities, who may not necessarily be the proper race or the proper background, that the registry could not be used against them. I get concerned about stuff like that. And I think specifically when if you remember stop and frisk, specifically in New York, when Bloomberg was mayor, that even if oftentimes that was a policy that disproportionately affected Latinx and African Americans. Even if a person got stopped and questioned and frisked, even if they didn't do anything, their name still went into a registry. Their name, yeah, and I mean, and so like, and I get that's the only thing. I don't necessarily have an issue
Okay.
with
So
registering. Let me get this off. I don't necessarily have an issue with people who are purchasing their guns from wherever to actually be in a database. As far as like, if I bought my car, any person can pull it up and they know who I am, my if I have insurance or not, where I live, and this is my car. So if anything happens, somebody try to steal my shit. I don't know why they would try to steal a 2005 Ford Explorer, but whatever. But if they did, it would be able to. They can find it, right? And so, but at the same time around, like I said, my head still goes there. So, okay, go ahead.
So basically, you're kind of conflating the difference between the firearms registry, which would be more like the DMV registry, where it's like, you have your registration for your car, and it's the same thing. It's basically any firearms you own, you would have registration, just like at the DMV you have for every vehicle you own.
No.
You're conflating that with like a sex offender registry, which that's something you're, involuntarily put on. Whereas this, it's similar to.
No, I'm not. No, I really wasn't trying to compare the two.
Okay.
What I was more concerned about is not necessarily that. I was concerned more so about, things like that, listservs like that could be possibly weaponized against folks who happen to be, specifically African American or Latinx or what have you. That could be an issue.
We have a gun registry. We have a gun registry here in California, and I don't think it's helped or hurt anything. Basically, if you legally buy a gun, you're in the California database. And that's only for California residents, because we're one of only 12 states where you cannot legally own an assault rifle. And so because of that, we have hardcore laws here. Go ahead, Jenny. You are patiently waiting.
The problem with the registry is that it's useless. So you got all the guns with their serial numbers and who owns them, and that's great and wonderful. If somebody has a gun stolen, great. Now we know that if this number comes up, that it was bought by this guy, but this guy doesn't have it because it was stolen. Okay, and so we know it's on the stolen market somewhere. What you need to do to make a registry start to be useful is a couple of things. You need to, first of all, get a fingerprint from the gun, because after the crime has happened, you don't have the gun there, you have the bullets there. And you need to be able to take their bullet markings that is unique to each gun, and you need to have that on file with the registration. So if they get a bullet from a crime, they can say, oh, well, let's look back on this, and have the computer look up and find the matching tracings.
Yeah, I'm fine with
Now,
that.
now that's all great and fine too. But if you
Isaiah.
don't have a law set, and it would be a package of laws that say if you own a gun and it is stolen, you are responsible for everything that happens with that gun until you report it. Okay.
Mm.
If you own a gun, and it is not or you have a gun in your possession and it is not registered, you are automatically going to jail.
Yes.
Because you have broken the law. Thirdly, if you want to own a gun, that's fine and dandy. I don't care if it's an assault rifle or if it's a Derringer single shot. You have to have insurance.
Like a car.
Like a car. And that insurance is going to be way freaking expensive because insurance companies, just because it's obligatory doesn't mean it's cheap. And they're going to have to charge through the butt to insure for a gunshot wound and the liability that's involved with that.
Like what? Like if you have like what do you call that? Comprehensive car insurance, and of course that's going to be even more expensive than just liability.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm looking
and you
now.
make so the insurance policy is one policy per gun, not one policy per person, and he gets to wrap.
And it covers all the guns like AAA.
Yeah, but one policy per gun, and you will force the gun market to shut down because people will not be able to afford that. Where they will not want the entanglement of all that.
Or you can afford it, but the ones just like how like any person who happens to like have a Rolls Royce, they're using.
Well, yeah, of course. There's always going to be exceptions like that. Then the fourth thing that you got to do is you got to tax the shit out of ammunition. Okay, put on a 500, 600, 700, 800%, 8% boost of taxes. Okay, that it's 8 times the cost of the bullet.
Do you know the price of bullets, Jenny? Do you know the price of bullets right now?
Oh yeah, a 45 caliber bullet can run you 50 cents to $1 per shot.
They used to be 5 to 10 cents a bullet.
Yeah, and they're not anymore. And so if you have an 800% tax on a 50-cent item, now suddenly that thing is $4 a shot. Okay.
You limit how many bullets you're actually going to be able to.
Oh yeah. So, and you can set up the law to be retrospective. So if guy's got 10,000 shots in his backyard or in his garage, you can tax them on those too.
They threatened that here. I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, California bought all the bullets that they get their hands on. Literally, bullets disappeared because they threatened a tax. And literally, you couldn't buy a bullet because everybody went out and just bought bullets and stocked up.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's why you make it retroactive. That any bullet purchased since 1962 or something like that.
It goes back to the lies that we tell ourselves. People, they think they have the right to be the Terminator, to pretend to be He-Man. When I lived in Arizona, it's nothing to see someone with an AR-15 out in the middle of the desert. My cousin has I come from privilege. Everyone knows. My cousin did 5 years in prison. My uncle bought him a house. He has an AR-15, goes out in the desert and legally just lets off shots because he lives in Arizona. We have crazy.
How can a felon own a gun?
They have crazy laws.
They have different loopholes depending on what state you're in
and what you did.
And that's even like one of my beefs, says the vegan, that you are not having consistent laws and policies when it comes to what gun control looks like. And that kind of just makes me go crazy. I just want to pull my afro out after I just grew it out. Y'all remember when I first started doing this? I was bald head. Now I mean, I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish during COVID, but still,
go ahead, finish your point.
No, it really just goes back to it. I mean, I would never say that I'm like a person who's has studied this issue feverishly, because I personally hate guns. I hate them. I mean, but at the same time, because of the climate that our society is in, I have considered getting one. And the reason being is because sometimes I fear what happened to me, depending on if I get stopped by if something happens to me, if I'm in the wrong neighborhood, or if I get stopped by the police and they decide that they had a bad day. You know, I get I those are the things that I think about. Even but I personally wish that I can just like construct this huge magnet that is only like gun adjacent and just like attract all them motherfuckers and just like throw it somewhere in the far galaxy of the universe. Maybe the Klingons will find it. I don't know. But it's going to be a while before they get over here because they don't have warp technology yet. At least I don't think so.
Cynthia, would you
Yes.
call that a Rona fro?
I'm sorry?
Would you call that a Rona fro?
A Rona throw.
Okay, in the
I'm
interest
sorry.
of keeping Cynthia's hair, and because we are getting very close to the 90-minute mark, we're going to have to wrap it up, even though I know everybody has more things that they would like to say on this topic. So maybe we'll come back to this topic again another day. So
No,
I'm going.
Can I just
pages
offer
and
a piece
pages
of
of notes.
Can I offer a piece of transparency, please?
Sure, go ahead.
I am not currently, but I have been a gun owner, and I would buy one again if I had the money. But I do not live in a city. I live in the middle of nowhere, and the statistics and dynamics of having a gun here is way, way, way different than in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I just want to be transparent.
Okay.
Oh, I was not even going to say because like this was going to be my point, so we're going to have a part two, but I'm going to leave it off at this. In Illinois, my advocacy group actually worked on language to include in our healthcare reform bill in Illinois to make violence as a public health crisis.
That's awesome because
That's interesting.
up until recently, like the CDC has not been allowed to track gun violence as a public health concern. It's only within like the last like 2 years, I think, that they've actually started tracking those things. So like, well done. Yay.
Shout out ADOS Chicago. Boom.
And especially violence against women.
Yes, actually, the bill covers structural violence. So it's not just gun violence. So we're talking about also domestic violence, inter neighborhood violence, and even how violence would even show up. Shout out to UMO. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate it. To be able to actually address the issue of violence on a more holistic level, and including how how violence even shows up in more poorer and lack of wealth neighborhoods across Illinois. So we're very excited and even going to be starting to work on a program where we can use smart data to track these inferences and even come up with solutions to actually address them.
And thank you very much for the super chat, Mo. And yeah, personally, I know quite a bit about how tanks work. I've mentioned before that my husband was career Army. He was a tank officer.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, and with that, we're going to start wrapping up. And we have not had a chance to hear hardly anything from Purple today. So, Purple, I'd like you to go first. Give any final thoughts that you might have and anything that you would like to show for on what's going on with your channel.
Oh, that's okay. And I had stepped away for a bit here, so I missed the end of this. But just my normal stuff going on. My just casual chats Wednesdays at noon and Thursdays at midnight Central Time.
Okay, very good. And Jenni, any closing thoughts? And what do you have going on your, well, not on your channel, but what are some of the things you've got coming up?
Well, what I'm doing this week is like for every other week. I'll be on Purple Show on Wednesday at noon, and then Thursday at midnight. Movie night on Friday at 10:30, and whoever else would like to have me come on and pretend I'm smart and things.
Oh, stop
We
it.
love you, Jenny.
Do not
We
talk down
love-
about yourself like that.
That's not pretending.
I'm your
you are
adopted
smart,
mom. I'll kick
Jenny.
your butt.
Ooh, I'd like that.
Look, everybody go on Twitter and just mention Jenny's bear on stream, and this will get a lot more views.
If you didn't see it on Twitter, I found her today in a parking lot down by the river. She was all alone. She had been run over by at least one car, and I just couldn't let her just stand there. And she's just so soft and
Was she in a
and
van?
cute.
Was she in a van?
Might have been.
Down.
I always feel bad when I find lost toys because if the kid was carrying it around, it had to be a favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that was found, and there was a lot of just junk stuff, was in a perfectly straight line across the direction of travel. So I think it was like all in a trailer or something, and just a whole lump of it fell off all at once. So it might have been somebody trying to move, and
Yeah.
some
Hopefully it
child
wasn't
lost
a
their
favorite.
buddy.
Hopefully.
So I'll take care of her from now on and make sure she's okay.
We need to name her.
Oh, she's got a name, but I can't pronounce it. It's
Oh wow. Why do we name why we're naming the bear of name you can't pronounce, Jenny?
because it's the Inuit word for a polar bear cub.
Oh, okay.
And Inuit.
Inuit.
And I have it at the tip of my tongue, but it's a difficult word to pronounce, and I'll work on it.
Just sound it out. Hooked on phonics work for us.
Okay,
I grew up around country folks. We don't name animals.
Something like that.
Okay, next stream, get it together.
Okay,
We've
Cynthia.
only been together a few hours, okay?
Cynthia, any final closing thoughts, and what do you have coming up?
Thoughts and prayers are bullshit. Get us together. We need policy. Fucktards in Congress. Yes, I will also be on the nonprofits this Sunday. That's produced by the ACA. Just like a hint, we're going to talk about bullshit and COVID and how it's thought to cure COVID. Literally bullshit. So please tune in this Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time on the nonprofits produced by the Atheist Community of Austin.
Okay.
And also, also I should be dropping a new episode of my other show, The Chronicles of the Revolutionary Nerd. We're going to be talking about, white characters turn black in the comic universe. It's a very interesting conversation. So that's going to be on our channel, the Motor City Black Age. So please check that out. And eventually I will get my political show back. We working on it. We trying to, herd all the cats together so that we can bring back the 13%.
Okay. Very good. Very good.
I love you.
I love you more.
No, more.
And we have a super chat from Junie the Apostate who says, "Plushy love for life." Also support and subscribe to Godless Granny and everyone here on the panel if you haven't already. Yeah, I thought this might possibly be a 2,000 subscriber celebration in addition, because 2 days ago I was at 1,999 subscribers.
Oh, jeez.
But then this morning I was at 1,997. And then in the afternoon, it was 98. And so now I'm back at 98, but I still have not hit 2,000.
People,
if you have not subscribed to Granny's channel, I need 2 people to do that shit now. Remember back in the day, Granny, when we was all like Christian, and we used to be like, I need 2 more people to come down to bring the offering. We almost there, people. The Lord is beckoning you. Is there one?
Okay.
Subscribe right now.
Will, any closing thoughts and anything that you want to add, that you have?
You know what? My closing thoughts are don't run up on me in my house, because you'll find out what I think about guns and gun rights. Protect yourself, as I always say. Think for yourself, as far as shilling goes, hold on.
You're at 2K now. Sorry.
Yeah, I just saw that.
There you
I was
go. I was about to say, if
like,
you don't subscribe to Granny, I'll fight you. But here
Hey,
You
we need
did
to
it.
do the we need to do the shouting music.
So now with that being said, all right, I have a whole spiel. So, okay. So, if you're not just, hold on. Hi, I'm Godless Sewing from the Godless Sewing channel. If you haven't already, you need to subscribe to the Godless Sewing channel every Thursday. Jen from Jen's Little Corner, Kitty, the Empress of Hell, and myself, we have the What the Fuck show, or which we'll be having this Thursday. We have the Sewing Circle on the Godless Sewing channel, which will probably be every Thursday, where, Kitty and I sew and just judge people and talk about life,
We just shoot the shit, really.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's grandma core. It's just hardcore sewing. It is grandma core to the fullest. Come check us out. We got all kinds of fun stuff. Every Wednesday at 3:30 Pacific Coast time, Sam Chaos, Maddie from Science Side Up, and myself, we have a podcast called Pub Religion, where a Christian, atheist, and a pagan walk into a bar and have a drink. And we're on episode 9, I believe. Check us out on Sam Chaos's channel. And wear a mask, don't be a dick, and help somebody.
Okay,
and
very
get the
good.
vaccine. And get the vaccine. Matter of fact, I will be at a relay event if you are in the Chicagoland area at where am I going to be at? At Shiloh Temple at 7000 South Michigan Avenue. We are giving the Moderna shot for the free. The free people get your vaccine.
For free.
$3.99.
Gratis.
Kitty, any final thoughts on what do you have coming up?
Well, Will pretty much shilled everything that I was gonna shill because we work together. But yeah, I will second what Cynthia said with get vaccinated. I just got my second dose of the Moderna last week on Thursday, so I got like a week and a half before I'm fully vaccinated. But you better know my bitch ass will still be wearing a mask because
Hell
one,
yeah.
it's respectful to the store employees to let them know that I ain't gonna give them shit, and two, I still don't trust people. Like, you see people walking around with, like, they dropped the mask mandate here in Florida, but then they weren't really enforcing it anyway. And all these people are like, oh, hey, I'm not going to wear a mask now, even if I'm not vaccinated. Fuck you. That's not how it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
But real quick, there was one story I saw that was pretty funny, and it was the fact that there are some anti-masker or anti-vaxxers that are now wearing masks because they are afraid of the proteins that we vaccinated people are shedding are going to harm them. So they're wearing masks now to protect themselves from us.
Okay. I
Whatever's clever.
I know I'm the cool guy from the suburbs, but what the hell does that even mean? What does that mean? What is that even? Is that science?
No, it's never based on science. It's
That's
always
just
based
Karen.
on their crazy woo-woo batshit
That's
crazy ideas.
Bat rubbing. No, now it's poo rubbing.
Yeah. Like I said, bullshit. We talking about it Sunday.
Yikes.
Bullshit and rubbing and colon.
I didn't mean to rub poop on myself. Sorry.
Don't do that shit.
Don't
do that.
Oh.
Okay, and final thoughts for me, thoughts and prayers, don't do anything for anyone. We need some responsible gun laws. First and foremost, we need to get rid of the assault rifles. And second, I know that we cannot exactly solve the problem. There's always going to be issues. There's no law that we can possibly pass that's going to solve everything, but at least we can make a dent in the problem by getting rid of, as I can't remember if it was Will or Jenny said, anything that fires more than 6 bullets without needing to reload it.
Mm-hmm. It was Perp.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Perp. Okay. And what I have coming up, I've got a video that I'm working on that's a response to Frank Turek, to an article of Should God Reveal Himself? So, and And then next week, I don't have my show lined up. And next month, we'll have another episode of Why Are We Here? And Vice Rhino is coming for that one. So be sure to come for that one.
And
But
you need a
thank-
2K special.
What'd you say?
You need a 2K special.
I'll
Oh,
make you
okay.
a thumbnail. I want to make you a thumbnail for your 2,000 subscriber special.
I got a really nice thumbnail. You can use that. I'm sorry.
Ah, Jenny. Jenny, I just wanted to call you Jenny just because.
You can call me anything you want.
But Shirley, I
It is
can't call you
that time
Shirley.
of the show.
I
It
just
is
can't call you
that
Shirley.
time.
I just can't
Yeah,
call
no,
you
I
Shirley.
don't even like that name. That's
Yeah, this time.
aside from the pun.
Yes. Okay, and so thank you to everyone in the chat. You have made a wonderful audience, and you've added so much to the discussion. And thank you so much for putting me over the 2,000 subscribers. That has been a goal of mine for quite some time. And
Yay.
I'm really happy about that. And thank you also to my guests. Thank you, Kitty. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you, Purple. And until next time, live your life.